Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You guys remember that movie? If you haven't seen it, it's this movie that came out, I think, in the late 80s, and it's this dad, I think he's a scientist, and he builds this thing, and his kids find it, and they accidentally shrink themselves. And basically, the whole movie is the dad looking for them and trying to find them, and they're trying to get back to the normal size, right? He builds this thing that shrinks things, and it shrunk his kids. And I don't know this for sure, and I know this is going to sound kind of silly, but I was just thinking about it. I wonder what it was like in heaven when God called all the angels together, and they're like, all right, then Jesus has got to go to earth. Christmas story, we've been waiting for this for hundreds of years. Anybody have any idea how we're going to shrink him? Right? How are we going to shrink Jesus? Because he's Jesus and he's huge, but somehow we have to make him a baby. Again, I wasn't there, so I don't know how in the world they came up with the idea to make something so big, so small. But here's what I do know. I know that when we celebrate the Christmas story, it's really, really important for us to remember that the baby that Mary is holding in her hands actually holds the entire universe in his hands. I heard a preacher say a long time ago, and I've never forgotten it. It's so good. He says, most miracles often involve something small being made big, but the miracle of Christmas is something big was made really small. The miracle of Christmas is somehow God became a baby. No wonder that when they named him, one of the names that they gave baby Jesus was Mighty God. Can you imagine that? Can you believe it that one of the names when they were naming him was like, we're just going to call him Mighty God. No wonder when the wise men came, the Bible says that they bowed down. No wonder that when this baby grew old and he was in a storm with his friends and he told the storm to be still, the writers tell us that his friends were utterly terrified because even the waves and the winds obey him. No wonder they were shook when they saw their friends walk on water. I know some of you are watching this right now and you're thinking, Sammy, I don't believe any of that. That sounds crazy. I don't believe he walked on water. I don't believe he commanded the storms and the wind. So that just sounds nuts. And if that's you, if you're watching, you have a hard time believing any of this Jesus story, I just want you to know that that's the point. The point is that it is hard to believe. And for what it's worth, Jesus' closest friends had a hard time believing that he was who he claimed he was. And if that's not crazy enough, guess what? Even his parents had a hard time believing that he was who he claimed to be. And yet he still came and he still pursued friendship with them. Do you know why? You know why Jesus still came even though he knew that you and I would have a hard time believing? Jesus came even though he knew we had a hard time believing because the baby is not just mighty in power. The baby is mighty in patience. The baby is mighty in kindness. The baby is mighty in mercy. The baby is mighty in grace. The baby is mighty in forgiveness. And this baby that we celebrate in the Christmas season is mighty in love with you and me. That is the gift of Christmas. Merry Christmas.